Well, here we are again, and we're going to take a look now at the index page and then finish up with a couple of final details and maybe look at a few examples. Here's the link for the index page, so let's go there. Here we are on the index page, and in this column here we have the names of everybody who appears in this book. There are about 3,000 such names. In the left part of the index page, you'll see that most of the data for all these people is exactly the same as it is in the individual chapter sheets. You have their chapter number, page number, birth date, death date, but we also have some additional information for each of these people, if that information is available. We have the location where these people were born, their principal place of residence, and if they're still alive, where they're living now, their place of death, and their burial site. You can sort this index in a variety of different ways depending on the type of information you're looking for. And to do a sorting, we click the Sort Options link right here. And that presents us with a window listing 7 different sorting options. And I'll go through each of these. First, we'll sort by page number. That is this column here. So now we have the names arranged in exactly the order that they appear in the individual chapter pages. As an example, I can take page 2. These are all of the people that are listed on page 2 in the same order that they appear in the table on that page. Page 2 belongs to John Randall Jr., and right below is his first wife's children, his second wife, and his second wife's children. Now you can see that the color coding that we used in the individual chapter pages is continued on the index page. The second sorting is by alphabetical listing. So now we have all of the 3,000 people listed in alphabetical order, last name first. The third sorting option is again an alphabetical listing, but only of people in the Randall bloodline. So here you see all of these people have an orange background, and you'll notice that they're all linked, so that if I want to go to any one of these pages, all I have to do is click on their link. The next sorting option is sorting by their birthplace. That's this column right here. And they are sorted first by state and then by city. And I should note one thing here. If we go down the alphabetical listing of the states, you'll see that I've listed Long Island as a state, and that's because there are just so many Randalls that live in Long Island. The next option is sorting by place of residence. Again, it's the same kind of sorting, first by state and then by city. Suppose I were going to a CPA convention in Daytona Beach, and I wanted to know if there are any Randalls that might be living in that area. Well, I can scroll down to Florida, and I see that there are quite a few Floridian Randalls. As a matter of fact, there's one who lives in Daytona Beach, but she's passed away. But I notice that there are several who live in DeLand. DeLand is only 20 miles from Daytona Beach. Well, let's take a look here. These first two are Generation 9, so they're going to be pretty old. We have these others here who are Generation 10, 11, and 12. Well, let's just take a look. We'll go to Lawrence Randall. Well, actually, his name was changed to Stockhausen. Looking down at the comments about him, we see that, well, by golly, he's a retired CPA. So I really hit the jackpot. I'm going to look him up. Well, let's go back to the index page and continue with these sorting options. The next sorting option is sorting by place of death, and again, it's very similar to the other sortings. The last option is sorting by burial site. The sorting is a little bit different here. It's first by state, then by city, and then by the name of the cemetery. So suppose I want to do a cemetery tour of Greenfield Cemetery in Hempstead. These are the people who are buried at Greenfield Cemetery. I know for a fact that there are many more Randalls buried there, but we just don't have them documented. Now we're finished with the index page. Let's go back to the table of contents. there are two other items that we haven't covered yet. This first button aligns all 1,500 pages in the book. And the reason that I have this option here is this. If you're working with a lot of pages, you're going to be scrolling around on these individual pages, and after a while they'll get kind of messed up. They really should be nice and neat like this. And this align option does that very function. If I click this button, it aligns all of the pages. I'll see that they've all been straightened out. This last button here, Relationships, is a fun little part of the book. If I want to see how any two Randalls are related, I can do it with this function. Let me click the Relationships button. And there appears a window with two drop-down lists. And what I do is select the names of any two people in the Randall bloodline from these two drop-down lists, and it tells me how they're related. So let's just take an example. I'd like to know how Mary Esther Randall is related to Albert Borland Randall. In the first drop-down list, I'll enter Mary Esther Randall, last name first. Randall, Mary Esther. And in the second box, I'll enter Randall Albert Borland. Then I hit the Go button. And it presents me with two things. A lineage chart showing the relationship between these two people, and a table over at the left that gives their precise relationship. Mary Esther Randall is the first cousin, one time removed, of Albert Borland Randall, and they share two common ancestors, William Randall and Phoebe Woodruff. We see that represented over here. Here's Albert, here's Mary Esther. Here is William Randall and Phoebe Woodruff Randall, their common ancestor. So now that we've gone through all of the elements of the book, I'd like to just give you an example of how the book might be used. It's a complicated example, and deliberately so. I don't expect you to follow me working through this example because that's not really the point. What I'm trying to show is how quickly you can find information in this book. The example is this. I want to find the closest relative that I have in this book. I already know my immediate relatives, so they don't really count. What I'm looking for are cousins. The first thing I would want to look for are first cousins. Well, I've already done that, and I found that I don't have any first cousins in this book. But now I'm going to look for second cousins. The first question that I have to ask is, what is a second cousin? I can answer that question by going to the foreword, which contains a little section on how people are related. And I've kind of summarized that in a chart here. Here I am, and I'm looking for a second cousin. Here's the second cousin here. Now, in order for two people to be related, they have to share a common relative. We see here that the common relative that I share with a second cousin are my great-great-grandparents. Armed with that information, let's go back to the table of contents, and I'm going to look up my own page. Okay, here we are at my page. Let's find out who is my great-great-grandfather. My father, grandfather, and great-great-grandfather, John J. Randall. I'm going to start my search at his page. Remember, I'm looking for great-grandchildren of John J. who are going to be in the 10th generation. I'm going to start my search on John J.'s page. Now, rather than going back to the table of contents to look up his page, I can simply note that John J. is 3 clicks away from me. So all I have to do is hit the parent link 1, 2, 3 times, and I'm at John J.'s page. So now my task is to look at all of the children that he had. He had 2 wives and he had 5 children. So there are 5 different paths through which he might have had some grandchildren. Let's take a look at these. First we have Lucy. Well, she died young, so we can eliminate her. Ernest Randall we can also eliminate because he's my grandfather. And any cousins that I would have going down this path would be first cousins. Alice Randall died young, so I can eliminate her. The first person that I come up with that might be a possibility is Lena Randall. So let's take a look at her. Go to her page. She had 2 children, John and Elizabeth Willits. Well, I can eliminate John Willits because he didn't have any children. But let's go to Elizabeth Willits. And we see here that Elizabeth Willits had 2 children in the 10th generation. These are great-grandchildren of John Jay. So both of these are my second cousin. Before I leave this problem, I'm just going to make one final check to make sure that these are my second cousins. I'm going to take the case of Mary Elizabeth Miller, and I'm going to go back to the table of contents and run her through the relationship function. I'm going to enter her name, Miller, Mary Elizabeth, and in the second box I'll put my own name. Hit the go button, and we see that I've made a slight mistake here. Mary Miller is indeed my second cousin, but our common relative is John J. Randall. That's all correct. But we do not share the same great-great-grandmother. John J. had 2 wives. I came from the first wife, and Mary Miller came from the second marriage. So indeed we are second cousins, but we're half cousins. That was my mistake. So you see, in just a few minutes we've been able to dig up quite a bit of information. I'm going to close now by going back to the table of contents. I close the ebook by clicking this button here. Once I click it, you see that all of those toolbars that I had eliminated before have now been restored. And I get a window that asks if I want to save the changes that I made in the book. Always click no. So now the book is closing, and we're out of the program. So now you know just about everything you need to know in order to enjoy this book, and I hope you have a lot of fun with it. And I thank you very much.